Daily Trust News Center, this is the News Hour.
On News Hour tonight, Naira redesign. CBN MPC meeting insists on January 31st as National Assembly calls for extension on deadline. Internally displaced persons in Maiduguri express frustration over inability to collect PVCs as deadline looms. NIMET predicts earlier than long-term average rainfall onset dates across the country in 2023. And on the foreign scene, authorities in South Sudan declare emergency after killing of 4 people. Hello and welcome to Trust TV News Hour. I am Ibrahim Yusuf. We begin with matters of the economy, where the Central Bank of Nigeria says the January 31st deadline for old Naira notes remains. The bank's Monetary Policy Committee meeting also raised interest rates by 100 basis points, taking it from 16.5% to 17.5%. The committee announced on Tuesday that the MPC cash reserve ratio was retained at 32.5%, while liquidity ratio remained at 30%. Chamun Dabeng now reports.
The first MPC meeting for 2023 had been highly anticipated, as many have been curious to see what move the CBN's MPC will make. Governor of the Apex Bank insists deadline for the withdrawal of old 1,000, 500 and 200 Naira notes from circulation remains, despite calls from different quarters requesting for an extension.
I must say here that unfortunately I don't have good news for those who feel that we should shift the deadline. My apologies. The reason is because, just like the president had said on more than 2 occasions, and even to people privately, that for us 90 days, in fact, we feel is 100 days is enough for anybody who has money or the old currency to deposit it, the money in the banks. And we took every measure to ensure that all the banks were open or remain still open to receive all old currencies.
The NPC meeting announced that the benchmark interest rate will be hiked by 100 basis points, taking it from 16.5% to 17.5%. CBN governor explains that the decision is in a bid to aggressively fight inflation. The decision to hike the interest rate comes despite a slight decrease in inflationary pressures, which he says is not enough to celebrate.
The economy remained confronted with the risk of high inflation, with adverse consequences on the general standard of living. The committee therefore decided to sustain the current stance of policy at this point in time to further rein in inflation aggressively. In summary, MPC voted to 1. Raise MPR to 17.5%, 2. Retain the asymmetric corridor at plus 100 and minus 700 basis points around the corridor, and 3. Retain the CRR at 2.5%, and 4. Retain the liquidity ratio at 30%.
Several experts, as well as international financial institutions, have warned against developing nations using monetary tightenings to fight inflation, as it may further complicate life for its citizens. Chamun Dabeng, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Meanwhile, daily cash withdrawals at automated teller machines in Yola Metropolis have been reduced to 20,000 Naira daily. Residents there are lamenting that the development is already causing untold hardship, as financial transactions have been greatly affected. Salis Lawan brings us up to speed with the latest development.
Reduction of cash withdrawals at automated teller machines by the Central Bank of Nigeria to 20,000 Naira daily is now a reality. Bank customers trooped to their various service points to access cash, but unfortunately, they could only access 20,000 Naira for the day. Some residents who spoke to Trust TV described the development as disturbing.
Really is affected, especially the rural community is affected drastically. Because yesterday my wife, she's a businesswoman, she went to Barking Sajo, Murki, to go and buy something with all currency. They rejected it. And some people carry their goods and go back home with it. That means this has affected the business of this, especially our state, Adamawa State, drastically.
It's really discouraging, and it hurting it, because most of the kiosks you see now, you want to make any purchase, most of them reject old notes. You come to the ATM machine for the purpose of withdrawal, and the daily limit is 20,000. How much is a bag of rice now? You don't expect me to go and buy a bag of rice for 20,000. So you see, the stress is just too much. And even in the counter, here's my check. I want to withdraw, and they were trying to give me an old note. Who is going to accept the old note? So I'm pleading with the Apex Bank. There is need for an extension.
Some business centers have placed notifications alerting customers that they will stop collecting old Naira notes from Wednesday, 25th January. Fortunately, the Adamawa state government has paid January salaries, but the question is how useful is the money when it is not readily accessible. Banking halls are overpopulated with customers returning old Naira notes. More worrisome is the fact that the new Naira notes are not available even when withdrawals are made over the counter. At the time of filing this report, master ATM points are running low on cash, which is hardly enough to go round, and whether or not CBN will yield to the appeals of many Nigerians to extend the deadline for collection of the old notes remains to be seen. From Yola, Salis Lewan, Trust TV News.
The POS operators in Bauchi State have accused the Central Bank of Nigeria of not considering the plight of Nigerian masses in the new Naira regime. The operators, who are reacting to the 20,000 Naira POS withdrawal limit imposed by the Apex Bank, are also appealing to the CBN to extend the deadline to allow customers who prefer to use the POS than going to the banks. Meanwhile, the House of Representatives on Tuesday proposed a 6-month extension to stop the collection of old Naira notes and allow the redesigned Naira notes to fully come on stream. The House also set up a special committee to interface with CEOs of commercial banks to discuss challenges hindering the smooth takeoff of the new CBN policy. The report.
Controversies surrounding the introduction of the new Naira notes from inception have continued to haunt the new policy of the nation's Apex Bank. Following a motion on urgent public national importance brought by Representative Sada Soli, Nigerians are facing challenges in swapping the new Naira notes from commercial banks across the country. The lawmakers are therefore calling for the extension of the time frame, while advising that the insistence by CBN for 31st January 2023 could further ruin the nation's ailing economy.
I'm not being personal. The CBN is a good policy. It's in tandem with global best practices. But world over, the currencies are not forced out of circulation. They are phased out of circulation. In this instance, in my own view, our currencies is being forced out circulation. And it is a known fact. The cashless policy and the currency swap for the new Naira notes have raised a lot of concerns to the growth of our economy.
The motion was supported by lawmakers who bemoaned the hardship faced by their various constituencies in swapping old notes for the new ones.
And we are all aware in the village, people do trading with 200 Naira, 100 Naira, 50 Naira. So if you give somebody 1,000 Naira, he can go and buy something, but there is no way he can get change, because the only available currency is the old note of 100 Naira, 50 Naira, 200 Naira, 500 Naira.
From the First Amendment, because of the reasons CBN are adduced to, I would say that rather than 1 year, we'll reduce it to 6 months. That's my First Amendment. Let's move it back to 6 months, that we should gradually phase out in 6 months.
The Speaker called for an extension of the new currency policy by 6 months, while also advocating for an interface between the House and the CEOs of commercial banks to trash out challenges facing the new policy.
So we'll set up another committee under the leadership of the House leader to meet with the operators tomorrow and then subsequently with CBN.
In his ruling on the motion, the Speaker mandated the House Bankers Committee, which will be headed by the House Leader Alhassan Dogowa, to interface with the CEOs of the commercial banks and report back for further legislative action.
And the Central Bank of Nigeria says it has already included 4 local languages in Plateau State into its communication across various media channels, as well as its bulletin, in order to sensitize natives on the new Naira notes introduced by the Apex Bank. Speaking with newsmen in its Jos office, the CBN Governor, Godwin Emefiele, said the 4 local languages through which the information on the new Naira notes are communicated to the Plateau people included Birom, Hausa, Wagavul and Ngas. He said community leaders, traditional rulers and relevant stakeholders have been engaged to pass the message across to the people. The report.
Represented by Musa Jimo, the Director, Payment Systems Management Department, Emefiele said part of the sensitization is to allay fears that the new notes are of poor quality and could easily be defaced or become unreadable, adding that they have tried it many times at public demonstration alongside foreign currencies like the US dollars. He said the features are solidified and not easily spoilt except deliberate or direct washing with water, writing on it, among other things. According to him, should the currency have any defect while in usage, the owners can exchange them for newer ones provided the serial numbers are intact.
Show you some of the security features. And I've said this, for those of you who says, oh, I put the money in the pocket and the money washes and blah blah, I said this thing. So we actually tested it because some people said, oh, bring the new note, use tissue paper to wash it, and then you see it change. And so the first thing we said is, please give me any new currency, mint, that you will not see the dust of the paint on top. And so what we did was to try some other foreign currencies. So we brought some foreign currencies and we did the same, and we saw that if it is new, you have the residue of the paint. It is not the features that are actually good. But I said, if your money is mutilated, either by way of water washing away the color, or somebody writing on it, or it's torn, take it to your bank. As long as the numbers, the serial numbers are there, your bank will take it from you.
He stressed that the January 31st deadline for the stoppage of the old notes remains sacrosanct, adding that the allegations by some commercial banks that the CBN is denying them of the new notes is totally false.
The old note is still legal tender currency to the 31st of January, which we expect you to take it to the bank. And that's why I said we remove all the charges that banks will charge for lodging amounts above the cash lodgement limit. You can take any amount of the old Naira note to your bank now and lodge it.
He urged the people to report any bank ATMs still dispensing the old notes because enough new notes have been given to the banks, who have been coming to them to collect the new currencies in large quantities.
President Muhammadu Buhari has constituted a 14-man steering committee to find a lasting solution to the disruptions in the supply and distribution of petroleum products in the country. The Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Timipre Silva, disclosed this in a statement issued in Abuja, adding that President Buhari is to personally chair the committee while Silva serves as alternate chairman. Other members of the committee are the Minister of Finance, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Petroleum Resources, National Economic Advisor to the President, Director General, Department of State Services, Controller General, Nigeria Customs Service, Chairman, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, and Commandant General of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, among others. The steering committee is expected to, among other things, ensure transparent and efficient supply and distribution of petroleum products across the country. And right now, our State House correspondent, Kehinde Amodu, joins us in the studio to discuss the presidential intervention. Welcome to News Hour.
Thank you very much.
All right, so let's jump straight into it. In a move to find a lasting solution to the current disruptions in the supply and, of course, distribution of petroleum products in the country, this new constitution of a 14-man steering committee by the President on petroleum product supply and distribution, which he will personally chair, comes at this time. a lot of people are asked, after 7 years in office, what novel strategy will serve as a silver bullet to check the persistent fuel dislocations in the country?
Well, it's a question that should be asked. I think maybe the first thing that should be noted is that the president himself is chairing the committee, which means that he wants to take personal responsibility for fuel distribution and management. So that's the first takeaway from setting up a steering committee to look at things like that. That means that he's going to be receiving daily reports about the fuel situation. That is, instead of leaving it to the Minister of State to monitor and probably give him maybe like weekly or bi-weekly reports on the situation on ground. So, but it's strange. If you look at the composition of the committee, you see that it's a government committee. There's no private sector participation in the committee, which means that what this is purely government regulatory body. So the question to ask is, after 7 years, what is new? I don't know what they're going to bring that is new to the table, because if you have struggled with this program, look at the composition of the committee. The same actors that are in charge of fuel management and distribution are still the same actors that are on the committee. I guess we have to wait and see. Nigerians will have to wait and see.
Because that was the question I actually wanted to ask. I mean, like, you talked about the president taking responsibility and taking charge of the situation, but isn't he already in charge of the situation, being in charge of the petroleum ministry all this while?
Well, I guess maybe this is a crisis situation. I don't know particularly what is new, but if you notice, I think over the last 4 months, fuel prices have been increased almost on a monthly basis. There's another cycle of fuel shortage, and there are speculations at the end of this, the prices will go up still. So what most Nigerians ask is, why don't you just, hike the price once and for all, increase the price once and for all, and let us know that this is what we are paying, instead of all this back and forth, which is not doing well for the economy.
All right. So talking about steps taken in the petroleum sector, which a lot of sanity has been tried to put into the whole situation, most especially the supply and distribution across the value chain. Now, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Temipire Silva, has actually directed the NMDPRA to ensure strict compliance with the government-approved ex-depot and retail prices for PMS. Now, what exactly does this mean?
I should ask you, because it struck me when I saw that part of the statement that came out, that the Minister of State for Petroleum is asking that agency to do its job. I mean, isn't that what it has been doing all along? And if you ask Nigerians, doing a very bad job at it. So why do you have to, because the president set up a steering committee, tell the agency to go and do its job again? I think it's just, I think that's personally to me, and I'm not an expert or an analyst, but I think that we're begging the question, what should be done instead of all this back and forth and pretense? What do we need to do?
All right, well, talking about what we need to do, looking at the composition of the steering committee, I mean, like, we have heads of government departments and agencies and all that. Does this bode any confidence? Does it bring any confidence to the effectiveness of the committee with the names involved?
It's yet to be seen. Because if you look at the actors, like I said earlier, the same actors, there's no change. The list of the people that make up that steering committee are people that have been in the business of fuel distribution and management all along. The only person that maybe is making, you can't say he has not been in the business, but okay, who is showing a face in the public now is probably the president as the as the chair of the steering committee, but the actors still remain the same.
So basically it's just old wine in a new bottle.
Yeah, well, old wine in a new bottle. We hope the old wine in a new bottle will be more effective, probably now that they have the president at the head of the committee, and then everybody will spice up to do their jobs. But other than that, except for that committee being formed, they've been there in that sector doing the same thing all along.
All right, well, it remains to be seen how effective that committee is going to be. Kehinde Amadu, thank you very much for coming on News Hour tonight.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Now, moving on to other news. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control and Prevention, NCDC, has deployed a rapid response team to Jigawa, Yobe, and Katsina states. Dr. Priscilla Ibekwe, head of Special Projects and Partnerships Unit at NCDC, said this on Monday in Abuja during a ministerial bi-weekly meeting on the update of COVID-19 response and development in the country's health sector. Ibekwe said the deployment of the response team followed a notification by the state government on rising cases of suspected cerebrospinal meningitis disease. Now, meningitis is a very serious infection that can lead to death if left untreated. It remains a major public health challenge affecting countries in the African meningitis belt, including 25 states and the Federal Capital Territory in Nigeria. Ibekwe said the preliminary reports were of 117 suspected and 12 confirmed cases, with 1 fatality. Now, still talking health matters, over 30 people are feared dead following an outbreak of diphtheria in Kano State. Trust TV's correspondent Idris Jibril reports that affected families are still mourning the death of their loved ones, while several others are still in the hospital. His report.
Sanusi Shaibu in Ungogoloku government area of Kano State is mourning the death of his son 2 days after he's been infected. He says one other is currently in the hospital receiving treatment.
He started with a fever. I then took him to pharmacist. They gave him some drugs. Later we came back home and the fever still continued. So I took him to the hospital. After I went to the hospital, they advised me that I should take it to another hospital where they normally treat people with such kind of disease. So the very day I took him to that particular hospital, it was the day he died.
According to residents of this area, several other people have lost their lives in the last few days, and it appears the outbreak is spreading further despite efforts to contain it.
She started from being very lazy, later on with a fever. Then I took her to the hospital. They gave her some drugs. We came back, but we couldn't go back to the hospital because she could not eat. Blood started coming out from her mouth, and later she died. He woke up with a swollen neck, and then after I saw that, I took him to the hospital. They gave him some drugs, and then we came back home. We thought it was just a normal disease that we used to see in Hausaland. So we keep on doing traditional medicine up to the time he died. Then people started telling us that it was a different kind of disease called diphtheria.
Experts say children are more vulnerable to diphtheria, but even adults who have not been properly vaccinated are also at risk of being infected.
Staying in an overcrowded location with people coughing, one is putting him or herself at risk. And the second thing is the issue of sanitation. Coming into contact with someone or maybe an object that has a deposit of the diphtheria bacterium, without proper sanitation, hand hygiene, one will also be at risk. So, and then with the weather now, the season, you know, it's a very cold time. And then with that, people come down with a lot of flu. So the thing is, people shouldn't take it for granted.
At the moment, doctors say over 100 people have so far been infected in Kano, and that the number of death toll may likely increase in the next coming days. Idris Jibrin, Trust TV News, Kano.
The Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, has predicted earlier than long-term average rainfall onset dates across the country in 2023. Minister of Aviation, Senator Hadi Sirika, said this on Tuesday in Abuja at the unveiling of the 2023 Seasonal Climate Prediction and other publications. The minister said parts of Katsina, Zamfara, Kano, Jigawa and Yobe in the north and Cross River, Ebonyi, Imo and Rivers in the south are likely to experience a delayed onset. He said the onset dates for parts of Adamawa, Bauchi, Gombe, Kwara, Oyo, Ogun and Lagos states are likely to be near than long-term averages. According to him, the onset is expected to start from the coastal states in early March and around June to July in the northern states. On rainfall cessation dates, NIMET predicted an early end of season over parts of the south comprising Osun, Ondo, Edo, Delta, Imo, Bayelsa, Rivers, Akwa Ibom and the eastern parts of Ogun and Lagos states. NIMET envisaged both daytime and nighttime temperatures to be warmer than the long-term average over most parts of the country in January, March and May. Still with us on Trust TV News Hour, still ahead. Reintroduced park and pay policy generates reactions among Abuja residents. Details of this and more after the break. You stay with us.
Daily Trust presents 20th Daily Trust Dialogue. Theme: Interrogating the 2023 Presidential Agenda. Panelists: Mrs. Ibukun Awoshika, former Chairman, First Bank of Nigeria. Professor Jibrin Ibrahim, Professor of Political Science and member of the board of the Center for Democracy and Development, CDD. Dr. Yetunde Anibaba, Lecturer, Analysis of Business Problems, Lagos Business School. Dr. Eugene Enahoro, Human Capacity Development Specialist and CEO, Heltoni Services Limited. Chairman of the event, John Cardinal Onaikon, Archbishop Emeritus of Abuja. Royal Father of the Day, Alhaji Samaila Muhammad, MFR, Serikin Karshi, Abuja. Date: Thursday, 25th January 2023. Time: 10 a.m. Venue: NAF Conference Center and Suites, Gwarimpa Expressway, near Next Shopping Mall, Kado, Abuja. For sponsorship and branding participation, contact 081 00 49 1948, 081 65 32 0660, or 080 33 92 8902. The event will be broadcast live on Trust TV.
Trust TV, documenting the Nigerian story.
Welcome back and thanks for staying with us on Trust TV News Hour. Now let's recap our top stories. CBN MPC meeting insists on January 31st as National Assembly calls for extension of deadline. National Assembly asks for 6 months extension on non-availability of new Naira notes continues. Now moving on to other news. The Nigerian Senate has directed the clerk of the National Assembly to transmit 35 of the 44 constitution amendment bills that have so far met the requirements of the provision of Section 9, subsection 2 of the Constitution to President Muhammadu Buhari for assent. The resolution to transmit the 35 bills followed deliberations on a motion sponsored by the Deputy Senate President, Ovie Omo-Agege, and 66 other senators. Ekiti Senator Okpeyemi Bamidele, who presented the report, said 27 states have forwarded their resolutions on the bills. The Senate appealed to the remaining states to send theirs as soon as possible. The 35 bills have been considered by 27 state houses of assembly and approved by at least 24 state assemblies as required by law.
1. Direct the clerk to the National Assembly to transmit the 35 bills that have so far met the requirement of the provision of Section 9, subsection 2 of the Constitution to Mr. President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federation for assent in line with the provisions of the Acts Authentication Act. And 2, urge the following State Houses of Assembly: Gombe, Jigawa, Kebbi, Kwara, Oyo, Plateau, Sokoto, Taraba, Zamfara, that are yet to forward their resolution on the bills, to do so in fulfillment of their constitutionally imposed legislative obligation to the Constitution amendment process.
This is democracy. Unfortunately, most of the time, the attention of the public is on National Assembly. Even when there is need to also focus on the State House of Assembly when the Constitution is amended, it's been amended. And this is what is happening. The National Assembly had done its work. Now, in the State House of Assembly, those particular amendments that many Nigerians feel are so critical and crucial for entrenching democracy in Nigeria have not passed. So it is very important that while citizens take particular interest in what the National Assembly does, they should equally take interest in what happens in our states, because it takes two to tango in the case of constitutional amendment.
And to politics now. Presidential campaign rally of the People's Democratic Party in Delta State recorded a large turnout of the party supporters at the Stephen Keshi Stadium in Asaba, the state capital. PDP candidate Atiku Abubakar told the crowd that he is in the state to thank the people and not to campaign, as they have been faithful to the party since 1999. National chairman of the party, Iyorchia Ayu, Sokoto State Governor Aminu Tambuwal and other chieftains of the PDP called on residents to vote PDP at the forthcoming general elections. The state governor and the party's vice presidential candidate, Ifeanyi Okowa, expressed gratitude to Atiku for choosing him as his running mate.
In fact, the Niger Delta sub-region all together. That is why it's my modest contribution to your support over the years. I decided to take one of you as my running mate. As you know, a running mate is always a stepping stone. Therefore, it is up to you to give Governor Okowa the massive support that he needs to show the people of this country that you are committed to your own future. It is our intention to devolve more powers and more resources to your respective states so that they can deal with your problems instantly instead of you to wait for the federal government to do so. It's the issue of unity.
And with a fine president, when get real capacity, with a fine president, when get Ogbonge experience, and we know that Atiku don't get Ogbonge experience as vice president for 8 years, And the man, not be only for government, he carry get knowledge. This man don't get plenty knowledge for private sector, so he know how to handle Nigeria.
Internally displaced persons in Maiduguri have lamented the non-completion of their PVCs and lack of means of transportation to travel to their local governments for voting during the 2023 elections. Muna IDP camp is the only camp yet to be shut down after the state government had declared all camps closed. Bitrus Kurutsi has more.
Since the closure of all IDP camps in Maiduguri, Muna al-Barnawi camp remains open till this day. As the elections draw nearer and collection of PVCs still ongoing, Trust TV found out that not all IDPs have collected their PVCs. According to them, they will be voting at their local governments and not in the capital city of Maiduguri. Ahmed Chigwal says he and his family will cast their ballot on the election day despite lingering fears and security threats in some parts of Mafa local government. He said those who are yet to have theirs were told to get them at their local government councils.
Some of
us are afraid of going back home to vote. Like recently, some farmers were kidnapped. But I'm still going to vote because we know the polling unit will be safe. They will be provided with security. We were told that we will be voting in our local government, and so we should go to pick our PVCs there. But they are supposed to finish the PVC distribution here. You have to transport yourself to your local government to get the PVC, and some of us don't have money to do that. Government should make it easier for us to get the PVC. With the 2023 elections expected to usher in a new government, they have list of expectations. I want the government to resettle us because the children are not supportive. They only play and learn nothing. Even the farming we do, they don't know how to do it. So until we are in our hometown, they will become more productive.
We will want the government to build schools, build hospitals, create jobs for us, and most especially provide farmers with implements and seedlings.
The 2023 elections, which will see resettled IDPs in their communities participating at the polls after 13 years of insurgency, will be a confirmation that the worst of terrorism in the area has come and gone.
And ahead of the 2023 general elections, potential voters have continued to visit the local government headquarters of the Independent National Electoral Commission across Nasarawa State for the collection of their permanent voter cards. Abubakar Abdullahi, who sent in this report, said some of the potential voters left the INEC offices with disappointment as they could not get theirs at the time of their visit. The report is presented from our studios.
The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, continued to register prospective voters after the 2019 general elections and suspended the process late last year to enable it process and issue the permanent voter cards to potential voters. Having commenced the issuance of PVCs, INEC extended the deadline for the collection of permanent voter cards by 1 week precisely to end on 29th January 2023 rather than 22nd January 2023 as earlier scheduled. Some of the potential voters who were at the offices of the Commission in Lafia said they could not get their PVCs but appreciated the process as, according to them, the Commission has given them another date to return for the collection before the deadline. Mine is renewal because the first one that I have got problem. So I came to the Commission to replace it because I want to cast my votes to choose whom I want. That is why I came. But till now, I have been coming without getting it.
I came to collect my PVC. They told me that my own has not been come, that I should come on Friday. Inside there's no people there. Those that come and take their own, there's no stress there.
Last year, around August, September, I collected it and they said we should come back later, October, December. So I went last week to collect mine and they said it wasn't ready, that I should come back. And I'm here, I've collected mine. Wait, should we send my bag? So I'm actually very happy that I've collected on my PVC and I'm ready to vote.
Well, direct from the INEC office, local government INEC office. And sincerely, there was no stress, no queue.
On the PVC collection in the entire state, sources from the state office of INEC said a significant number of potential voters have obtained their PVC across the state.
So far, we have some uncollected PVC. As at the count of yesterday, we have given out almost close to 20,000. So there are a couple of cards remaining, about 6,000 or so. Though we are still expecting the last batch of the cards in a week's time or so.
Trust TV observed that regular media enlightenment by INEC is making it easy for the potential voters to locate the PVC collection centers in the state, though thousands of PVC sent to these offices are still in possession of INEC, waiting for owners to come and claim them.
Now, President Muhammadu Buhari has appointed Solomon Arase, former Inspector General of Police, as the chairman of the Police Service Commission, PSC. The appointment is subject to the confirmation of the Senate. In a letter at plenary on Tuesday, Senate President Ahmed Lawan said the President based his request for Arase's confirmation on sections 153 subsection 1 and 154 subsection 1 of the Constitution as amended. If confirmed, Arase will succeed Musliu Smith, also a former IGP who resigned under controversial circumstances last year. Arase was appointed IGP in 2015 by former President Goodluck Jonathan, who sacked Suleiman Abba over alleged disloyalty. Before his appointment as IGP, Arase was head of the topmost intelligence gathering unit of the Nigeria Police, the Criminal Intelligence and Investigation Bureau. Meanwhile, the police in Imo State on Monday confirmed that a technical investigation has commenced into the abduction and killing of the sole administrator of the Idiato North local government area. Police Public Relations Officer Henry Okoye, in a statement, said that the command is aware of the video that has gone viral on social media. Okoye explained that in the video, a man suspected to be the abducted Idiato North local government sole administrator is seen kneeling down, his hands tied and made to undergo an inhuman act. The command called on people of Idiato North community and the general public to remain calm and go about their lawful businesses, as the police and other security agencies are working to forestall any future occurrence. And as Nigeria joins the global community to commemorate the 2023 International Day of Education, the need to tackle the rising number of out-of-school children has again been stressed as it threatens development in the nation. According to experts and development partners, this can be mitigated by implementing policies that improve livelihoods of families, provide better access to quality education, collaboration with non-state actors, and increase budgetary allocation to the education sector. The report.
Nigeria, according to statistics, holds the third highest number of out-of-school children among primary school, adolescents, and young people in secondary schools. The number of those deprived of education is 19.7 million, according to the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization 2020 model estimates. Educational opportunities are lacking in many parts of the country due to poverty, insecurity, unending strikes, among others. Stakeholders say investing in people is a way of prioritizing education, as it remains a critical tool for human capital development and the economic growth of the country.
Non-state actors like us, we've been able to help more than 5,000 children through different initiatives, because we believe that quality education is not only about academics, as people broadcast it out there, but it's also a question of being able to find what the talent of the child is and make them future ready and productive citizens of the world.
We identified 20
beneficiaries, which are out-of-school children within the community, right? And we decided to enroll them into school. So we came here today, we met with the parents of the beneficiaries and we met the beneficiaries as well. We conducted an enrollment assessment for them to enable us to identify the class in which these children fit into, that is within primary 1 to 6, and we did that successfully. We also distributed learning materials to them, and we met with the head teacher and paid their registration and tuition fees as well.
Despite programs and strategies deployed by the federal government to address the menace of out-of-school children, the number has continued to rise.
Initiatives like the Open Schooling Initiative by UBEC, the Girl Child Education Initiative, Agile program in many states across the country, funded by the World Bank, so also supported by state governments. But the problem is we want the government to also fund more and fund better, because the current budget speaks to only about 8% of Nigeria's budget, and we're supposed to have at least 15 to 20% marked for education. This is the only thing that is going to solve a lot of the challenges we have.
The government can also work well, together. The more we collaborate, the governmental organizations and private organizations, the more results we will produce, I believe, and the more impact we would have on the society.
To reverse the trend and spur accelerated development, the 2023 International Day of Education urges governments, the global community, and important stakeholders to stick to their pledges to prioritize investment in education and educational transformation. Adequate funding and implementation of policies should be deployed to ensure learning activities are tailored to students' unique abilities and needs at all levels. Aisha Salihu, Trust TV News, Abuja.
The Federal Capital Territory Administration has concluded arrangements to reintroduce park and pay policy. The objective of the policy is to guarantee safety of cars and curtail the indiscriminate parking of vehicles in the city. In this report, Noel Sampson gets more clarification on the reintroduced policy and plays the devil's advocate for concerned FCT residents. The report.
This is the second coming of the park and pay policy. In 2014, the scheme was in place but was resisted by residents who decried the high-handedness of operatives and also queried the ownership of companies being used for ticketing and enforcing. The matter ended up in a court, and in a judgment that lasted over 1 hour, Justice Peter Afen held that though the park and pay policy might be described as an excellent policy, it lacked the backing of the law. After the FCT had gone to do its homework and put in place relevant legislations, the park and pay policy is back. But beyond legislation, the FCT administration has embarked on various measures aimed at addressing the concerns raised by the court and the public. While some FCT residents are pacified, others are still uncomfortable with the policy.
There's some places that the thing will work, like hotel. Inside the hotel, fine, it's making sense. But a place where that outside, that somebody just park a car and say you should pay, it doesn't make sense. There's so many, we are facing so many challenges in the country.
I think it's a good development. My only problem will be if people will not abuse it. Like maybe when you allow people to pay to park, at the end, if they are giving them 1 hour, they will not come in 1 hour and it will bring argument and all of that.
It's a very good one. I mean, for the fact that it provides order within the roadside and all that. So I really think it's a good one. So whatever the advantage is in terms of getting money and all that, it's none of my concern. But for the fact that it provides order within the road, so I think it's a very good one.
The Director of Traffic Management, FCT, Wadata Aliu, however, gives reassurance that the reintroduction of the policy has advantages to the general public.
The plan reintroduction is not actually 100% revenue based. We are looking at the safety of road users who are going to be the greatest beneficiary in this scheme, either directly or indirectly. For example, we are starting at Garikiwan, Garikitu, Wuse, and Maitama. These are the areas where we want to start for now, and then much later we can now go into other areas of the city.
It is expected that when the policy starts, those who park their cars illegally will exercise more restraint and curtail the careless stationing of their cars. This will allow cars to be in safe with security agencies. thereby making the owners comfortable that their cars will not be stolen. Noel Samson, Trust TV News, Abuja.
President Muhammadu Buhari on Tuesday inaugurated the first phase of the Lagos Mass Transit Blue Line Rail project. The first phase is a 13-kilometer stretch from Marina to Mile 2 and has 5 stations: the Marina Iconic Station, National Theatre, Orile Igamu, Suru Alaba and Mile 2. Buhari also witnessed the signing of the contract for the construction of the second phase of the Lagos Mass Transit Blue Line Rail. The President took a ride on the train with Governor Sanwo-Olu, Deputy Governor Dr. Obafemi Hamzat and other dignitaries. The Governor said that the project will free up more of the residents' time, reduce the pressure on the roads and contribute to Nigeria's lofty climate action obligations.
Phase 1, like the Deputy Governor said, has 5 stations. From here in Marina, it goes to National Theatre, Igomun Station, Alaba Station, Orile Station, and Mile 2 Station. They're expected to cover just less than 15 minutes as compared to a journey time that hitherto will take about an hour and a half to 2 hours. The benefits, Mr. President, are obvious. It will reduce travel time, it will improve the quality of life of our citizens, and it will make Lagos one of the most resilient mega cities, not only in Africa, but it will compete with other mega cities in the world. And Mr. President, it is also on track that we will be commissioning the Red Line before the end of your administration. That, in fact, is even a bigger, better, longer rail corridor, which we're excited with the collaboration of the Nigerian Railway Corporation, where we're sharing the rail corridor.
Right now, let's join Chiamaka Nwafo for business news.
The market price of diesel in Nigeria surged by 184% from January to December 2022, despite the fall in global crude oil prices towards the end of last year, with Brent crude averaging $80 per barrel. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, the average retail price of automotive gas oil, also called diesel, paid by consumers rose from 288 naira in January to 818 naira in December. On a month-on-month basis, it increased by 1.11% from 809 naira in November. As cost of diesel is not regulated by the government, marketers use this as an advantage to generate profit for themselves, according to experts. Brent crude, the international oil benchmark, has declined by 34% from a high of $122 per barrel when the Russian-Ukraine war intensified. In December, Brent averaged $80.92, the lowest last year. Nigeria's Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS, has announced that it collected 10.1 trillion naira in tax revenues in 2022, the highest tax revenue in its history. A statement from the FIRS disclosed that the service earned 4.09 trillion naira in oil revenues, representing 41%, and 5.96 trillion naira in non-oil revenues, representing 59%. This is against a target of 10.44 trillion naira set for that year. The statement further explained that companies' income tax contributed 2.83 trillion naira, valued added tax 2.51 trillion naira, electronic money transfer levy 125.65 billion naira, and earmarked taxes 353.69 billion naira. According to the Executive Chairman of the FIRS, Mohammed Nami, this was made possible through dogged implementation of strategic reforms over the past 2 years, a renewed commitment by officers of the service, accompanied with a boosted morale, as well as the innovative deployment of technology for automation of both tax administration and operational processes. Finally, in stocks, there was a bearish session on the floor of the Nigerian equity market as the all-share index declined again by 0.09% to close at 52,612.55 points. The market capitalization closed at 28.657 trillion naira, down by 0.09%. The market broke close positive as 20 stocks gained against 14 declined in their share prices. Aggregate volume at the end of Tuesday's session grew by 26.90% to 182 million units, while the traded stocks valued at 4.8 billion naira in 3,470 deals. And that's it on Business News. I am Chiamaka Nwafo.
Now for a look at the foreign scene, where authorities in South Sudan have declared a month-long state of emergency after armed men opened fire on a bus station on Monday, killing at least 4 people. Officials in South Kordofan province said the attack on the provincial capital, Kudugli, wounded at least 4 others. South Kordofan's acting provincial governor, Musa Gabar Mahmoud, described the attack as unfortunate, pledging that local authorities will spare no efforts to regain security and stability in the province. He said a state of emergency took effect on Monday across the southern province on the border with South Sudan. No group immediately claimed responsibility for the attack, which took place as the victims were heading to areas controlled by a rebel group known as the Sudan People's Liberation Movement North. All right, now let's join Adeni Ajishafe for sports news.
Victoria Azarenka continued her quest for a third Australian Open title, a decade on from her last by knocking American third seed Jessica Pegula out in the quarterfinals, winning 6-4, 6-1. Azarenka will face Wimbledon champion Elena Rybakina in the last 4 after Kazakh beat Yelena Ostapenko 6-2, 6-4. Rybakina fired 11 aces and 24 winners to claim victory over Latvia's 17th seed Yelena Ostapenko. The Kazakh seeded 22nd wrapped up victory in 1 hour and 19 minutes following a lengthy rain delay on Rodlava Arena. And in football, Barcelona and Sevilla have been disqualified from the Copa de la Reina by the Royal Spanish Football Federation (RFEF) for fielding ineligible players. Sevilla brought on Nagori Calderon from the bench in their 1-0 win over Villarreal. The midfielder was given matching orders against UD Granada Tenerife in last season's quarterfinals, and a suspension carried over to the last 16 clash with Villarreal for 2022-2023 season. The RFEF also discovered that Spanish champions FC Barcelona Femení lined up an ineligible player, Gesse Ferreira, against Osasuna. Despite the Blaugranas 9-0 win, it is Osasuna that will now qualify for the quarter-final of the Spanish Cup. The club is also fined €1,000 and can still file an appeal in the next 10 days. Gesse had received a red card in the previous Copa game with Madrid and shouldn't have played the match against Osasuna. That's Sport News. I am Adeni Ajishafe.
And that wraps up Trans TV News Hour for tonight. For more news, you can subscribe and follow us across all our social media platforms. I am Ibrahim Yusuf. Thanks for joining us.
From the Daily Trust News Center, this is the News Hour.